When my son informed me that I was not going to be invited to their home for the upcoming holiday, I immediately smiled, climbed into my vehicle, and placed a single telephone call. By the beginning of the next calendar year, I had successfully managed to terminate their specific monthly mortgage payments. That deliberate action was merely the very initial phase of my comprehensive strategy. It was absolutely essential that justice be formally reinstated and extreme arrogance receive the warranted consequences. You would be truly shocked by the strategic move I planned next. Before you continue reading further, please promptly subscribe to the designated channel and indicate your precise geographical location in the comments section below. I gently suggested that I could expertly prepare my widely known turkey this specific year. Leaning deeper and more comfortably into Michael's leather sofa, I deliberately mentioned the specific turkey featuring the aged stuffing recipe that his mother was extremely fond of. I specifically asked if he could clearly recall her consistent verbal remark that it significantly surpassed her own grandmother's original recipe. The words I spoke remained momentarily suspended in the warm, surrounding atmosphere between our positions, mingling with the distinct scent emanating from Isabella's costly vanilla-scented candles. Michael shifted his body position right beside me, his golden wedding band catching the intense illumination provided by their impressive 12-foot-tall Christmas tree. Something noticeable about his underlying body language changed instantly, his shoulder muscles tightening inward, noticeably as if he were actively anticipating a sudden impact. Dad, unfortunately, you won't be explicitly permitted here for the Christmas holiday. The stunning news struck me comparably to receiving a heavy physical blow. Oh, I simply replied. I immediately blinked, my eyes rapidly, utterly convinced I had severely misinterpreted the statement he made. What precisely are you sincerely implying? Why would I possibly be unwelcome in this house? Michael meticulously avoided my steady gaze, focusing his entire attention instead on the polished marble coffee table. I had actively assisted him in selecting that precise table last spring when Isabella definitively determined that their previously existing furniture seriously lacked sufficient refinement. Isabella's biological parents are currently arriving, and they genuinely prefer if you were not actually present here. My hands physically turned cold instantly. They'd prefer that specific arrangement. It's simply much easier achieved this specific manner, Dad. You clearly understand Isabella's family's emphasis placed heavily on established customs. They possess their distinctly specific way of successfully conducting all matters. His voice audibly diminished with the utterance of every single syllable, strongly suggesting internal shrinking or withdrawal. I meticulously scanned the large living space, observing the expensive silk window coverings I financially funded when Isabella raised specific concerns about privacy. The pristine hardwood flooring actively obtained via the use of my second mortgage loan and the elaborate, detailed crown molding that completely maxed out my available credit card limit. Every individual section of this impressive residence bore undeniable evidence of my direct financial contribution, my significant personal sacrifice, and my complete devotion to my biological son. Their very own established way, I deliberately reiterated the phrase slowly. And what distinct manner is that one, Michael? He visibly winced in discomfort. Dad, please strongly refrain from complicating this specific situation more than it is strictly necessary. Through the designated kitchen entryway, I could clearly view Isabella's new expensive KitchenAid mixer, the professional high-end model she urgently demanded for her fleeting 3-week temporary holiday baking period. That $2,000 of my personal capital sat stationary there, most likely used only twice since the previous month of October. Where precisely will I spend the Christmas holiday, then? The specific query emerged softer in tone than I had initially intended. Michael's facial expression perceptibly sagged. Perhaps you could. I genuinely don't know. Maybe visit Aunt Rosa, or we could perhaps schedule to actively do something later. The immediate weekend after Christmas. The immediate weekend after. As if Christmas were merely just another routine, scheduled event that could be casually rescheduled for simple convenience. I successfully stood up, my aging knees loudly protesting after actively bearing this substantial responsibility entirely alone for 8 years. I fully understand your position. Dad, please wait for a moment. But I was already moving steadily toward the exit pathway past the numerous family portraits where my visible image became increasingly smaller and more distant in each successive picture frame past the designated storage space holding Isabella's extensive array of various jackets. My physical hand grasped the cold, solid metallic doorknob beneath my touch. Son, I firmly stated without turning my body around. Tell Isabella's parents from me, I directed the specific message. Feliz Navidad. The chilling December air forcefully struck my face abruptly as I walked purposefully toward my parked vehicle. Behind my position, I heard Michael verbally call out my name once, promptly followed by the quiet, definitively final click sound of the heavy door successfully closing. I remained seated fully in the driver's seat momentarily, the engine intentionally turned off, watching the constantly twinkling Christmas lights illuminating the windows of various houses where I would definitively never be welcome to enter. My mobile phone suddenly vibrated, likely Michael attempting to reconcile the ongoing situation with empty, insincere promises and overt attempts to induce guilt. I purposefully did not respond to the alert. Instead, I firmly inserted the ignition key and actively drove into the encroaching darkness, permanently leaving behind the inviting external radiance of the specific home I had financially financed, but would never truly belong within. The internal heating unit softly hummed against the biting December cold as I smoothly navigated the familiar routes toward the location of my own personal residence. South hills spread out noticeably around me, every local intersection retaining vivid memories of the specific individual I once used to be. That prior man genuinely believed that kinship and family were absolutely everything important, and who would readily donate his last available funds just to see his beloved son genuinely smile. That particular version of a person was truly a complete fool. I temporarily paused at the intersection traffic light located on 29th and Grand Avenues. I observed a young biological father loading various holiday presents into his large SUV vehicle. His excited children pressed their small faces against the window glass surface, their breath causing condensation and fog due to their visible excitement. There existed a previous time period when that precise image was representative of Michael and myself. Before Isabella entered the situation, before my specific function was significantly reduced to merely being a mobile ATM machine with highly inconvenient emotional needs, the substantial numerical figures began actively rotating rapidly within my mind, exactly like a severely malfunctioning slot machine. $2,800 consistently required every single month for 5 full consecutive years. My trusty calculating device entirely gave up trying to logically make sense of the total accumulated sum that previous spring when I finally manually summed it up completely. $140,0. A truly massive sum exceeding the total amount Maria and I had meticulously saved for our collective established retirement, simply and completely disappeared. I aggressively accelerated more forcefully than was strictly necessary when the traffic light successfully turned green. The truck vehicle reacted with a deep, resonating audible sound that perfectly matched my present internal mood. 5th Street intersection. This was the exact street where I had formally refinanced my personal residence, our shared residence, Maria's, and mine to successfully provide the necessary funds for their initial substantial down payment. The banking representative looked directly at me with a noticeably sad gaze I completely failed to accurately recognize back then. "Mr. Flores, are you completely and absolutely sure about proceeding with this transaction? You are readily accepting a truly substantial financial risk for what is essentially someone else's external investment, someone else's singular investment. It was clearly not officially categorized as being my son's eventual future. It was clearly not designated as being my family's fundamental financial protection. It was explicitly labeled as being someone else's substantial investment. Lincoln Street intersection. This particular location was the specific banking establishment where I successfully acquired a second mortgage loan to full years prior when Michael was temporarily unemployed. Just for a temporary duration, Dad, just until I managed to successfully stabilize my overall financial situation. Isabella was strategically positioned directly behind him. $700 designer handbag hanging loosely over her shoulder area. Nodding her head sympathetically while simultaneously mentally gauging the true worth of my escalating desperation. Ultimately, my profound desperation proved completely worthless and without any value to them. I pulled my vehicle into my own personal driveway, the concrete surface of which was noticeably cracked, a required structural repair. I clearly couldn't afford to finance because every single available spare dollar disappeared entirely into their idealized suburban existence lifestyle. The exterior porch illumination fixture momentarily flickered noticeably, another necessary repair I had persistently postponed. Inside the dwelling, the house felt distinctly empty without the sound of Maria's vibrant laughter. Without the feeling of warmth emanating from family gatherings that would unfortunately never successfully occur again. My personal mobile phone suddenly rang as I clumsily fumbled with locating the house keys, the sharp, intrusive sound echoing intensely off the bare. Vacanwol. Isabella's specific name brightly flashed across the phone screen. She was most likely calling with the intention to actively justify precisely why I was deemed unsuitable for her parents' delicate social sensitivities. This timing was absolutely perfect. I had been patiently anticipating this specific conversational dialogue for 5 full years. I consciously answered the incoming call on the 4th full ring, intentionally allowing her sufficient duration to question whether I would actually pick up the call. Dennis, Isabella's voice was dripping heavily with noticeable synthetic sweetness. Using the identical vocal pitch she habitually used when asking me to fully cover their water utility bill or outstanding property taxes. I heard brief mention about the small unfortunate misunderstanding with Michael. Misunderstanding. I leaned my body against the cool surface of my kitchen counter, still actively wearing my heavy outer coat. I definitively do not believe there exists any misunderstanding, Isabella. You articulated your established position quite clearly and unambiguously. Look closely. I fully know this appears slightly harsh, but you must strive to understand my parents' specific viewpoint. They are genuinely very traditional individuals. They consistently anticipate a certain type of specific, precise atmosphere during the annual holidays. A specific, precise atmosphere. I intentionally repeated the phrase. And what particular atmosphere is that specific one? A moment of complete silence quickly followed my query. I could distinctly detect the audible rustling sound of various shopping bags in the distant background environment. She was highly likely actively spending financial funds that ought to have been correctly allocated toward their required mortgage payment. Funds that, apparently and ironically, were entirely considered my own financial obligation. Well, they are simply unaccustomed to experiencing your particular style of prepared cuisine. All that highly spicy Mexican food and loud, boisterous musical selections. And, truthfully speaking, Dennis, they are highly educated individuals. They fully expect engaging discussions concerning contemporary, relevant topics, significant literary works, and modern art movements. You generally are aware of the expectations. The series of blunt statements hurt my feelings more deeply than receiving a physical blow. 8 continuous years of purposefully suppressing my comments, of patiently tolerating offensive insults solely for Michael's sake, of intentionally pretending not to observe her facial expression when she actively regarded me as though I were merely hired help, my particular kind of ethnic cooking. My voice meticulously maintained a highly level, perfectly controlled tonal quality. Are you actually referring to the specific meals you enthusiastically consumed every single Sunday for 3 full years when available money was extremely scarce? The specific tamales you explicitly claimed vividly reminded you of your maternal grandmother? That particular time was distinctly different. We felt deep gratitude back then, but now with the presence of my biological parents. Now with the specific presence of your parents. You are utterly unable to have the Mexican peasant humiliating your family at your lavish, impressive dinner table. The forced artificial sweetness instantly vanished completely from her voice. Do not actively be overly dramatic, Dennis. This critical situation has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with ethnicity or race. It solely pertains directly to one's elevated social standing, she defensively asserted. My biological father successfully graduated summa cum laude with highest honors from Washington State University. My mother is notably fluent and proficient in 4 distinct international languages. They consistently spend their summer leisure time vacationing extensively in the luxurious Hamptons. What specific intellectual material would you precisely contribute to the sophisticated dinner conversation? Factual narratives concerning Lane Tile, my business. Intense, emotional heat rapidly rushed into my chest region, but I carefully maintained a steady, firm voice. I successfully established a profitable business starting literally from absolutely nothing. Right after your husband's grandfather unexpectedly passed away. I have successfully provided dependable employment to a verifiable total of over 50 individual people. I have financially paid a significantly greater total amount in annual taxes than your father successfully earned in his absolute most successful year of employment. Accumulated financial wealth is truly not the ultimate measure of everything, Dennis. Proper cultural upbringing matters. Formal educational background matters profoundly. And speaking frankly, Maria inherently understood her social position better than you currently understand yours. The established telephone connection immediately went dead silent. She had definitely crossed a critical line boundary. A specific boundary I hadn't truly realized existed until she had deliberately walked across it wearing her expensive designer footwear. What exactly did you just comment regarding my deceased wife? I am merely trying to gently suggest that she fully understood how to effectively assimilate herself more successfully. She actively and meticulously avoided causing any form of disruption. She fully comprehended that some high-level environments were simply not specifically intended for her type of background. My physical grip on the phone device tightened intensely until my knuckles visibly turned a pure bleached white color. Maria possessed considerably more natural refinement in her smallest finger than your entire extended lineage will ever successfully possess. Oh, please spare me the exaggerated sentiment. She was merely a common domestic worker who happened to get extremely fortunate. At the very least, she possessed the simple good sense to maintain complete silence regarding her background. Isabella. My voice abruptly descended to an unfamiliar, deep sound. I require you to pay extremely close and careful attention to my words. This specific discussion is definitively concluded. We are officially done with the constant pretense of being related as a cohesive family unit. You absolutely cannot just simply. We are entirely finished. I firmly reiterated the statement and promptly terminated the ongoing call. I gently placed the phone down onto the kitchen counter surface, my hands feeling surprisingly stable and steady. Around my position, the entire kitchen space felt immediately transformed. Perceptibly smaller, yet simultaneously notably cleaner, exactly as though a massive, heavy burden had instantly evaporated from the immediate surrounding atmosphere itself. I walked over toward my writing desk located in the designated corner, and carefully retrieved the thick manila document holder I had successfully been avoiding dealing with for several preceding months. It specifically contained crucial bank transaction records. Detailed mortgage contractual documentation, and verifiable evidence of 5 full years of consistent automated financial transfers that had severely depleted my personal finances while they comfortably enjoyed a lavish, privileged lifestyle. The necessary time had definitively arrived to stop the ongoing financial draining. Part 4 was formally titled The First Decisive Decision, cancelling the primary mortgage agreement. The various documents were meticulously spread out across the surface of my kitchen table, visually resembling formal exhibits presented at a legal inquiry. 5 consecutive years of detailed financial statements were laid wide open and visible, each singular document clearly displaying the identical recurring automated financial transfer, $2,800 consistently disappeared precisely on the 15th day of every calendar month from my personal bank account directly into theirs. A completely verifiable, accurate record of my own sheer lack of good financial judgment. I intentionally took out my electronic calculator device and immediately began the comprehensive total summation. All of that substantial financial resource was completely lost and gone, entirely poured into a single residential property where I was formally denied physical entry for the Christmas dinner celebration. I reached deliberately for my mobile phone device, actively scrolling through my organized contact list until I successfully located the precise telephone number for my chosen financial institution. The sophisticated automated system conveniently presented available options in both standard English and conversational Spanish languages. How genuinely considerate they were. How incredibly obliging, specifically to people exactly such as myself. Customer Support Services. This is Jennifer speaking. How may I effectively assist your needs today? I urgently need to officially terminate an automatic, recurring money transfer immediately. I clearly stated, my voice sounding noticeably more assured than it had in several preceding years. Certainly, sir. I will strictly require your complete account identification number and some verifying security information. I rapidly recited the necessary numeric sequence, distinctly hearing her input the detailed information. She sounded highly professional, clearly capable, displaying absolutely no visible judgment regarding the specific reason why a 62-year-old man was abruptly stopping consistent payments for what was presumably recognized as his biological son's ongoing home loan obligation. I clearly observed the recurring transfer you are specifically referring to. Mr. Flores, $2,800 distributed monthly to Wells Fargo. Account ending in 7,423. For what total duration have you been actively initiating this recurring transfer? 5 consecutive years in total. The specific words themselves tasted intensely bitter in my mouth. And you explicitly wish to officially cancel it immediately. I glanced intensely around the interior of my kitchen at the visibly dated appliances. I clearly could not realistically afford to successfully substitute at the bare walls desperately requiring application of fresh paint at the window framework sections that permitted noticeable cold air infiltration because I had entirely spent my personal home improvement funds on what was financially defined as someone else's impressive, large dwelling. With immediate effect, I strongly verified the statement. Consider it officially done. The financial transfer has been successfully and definitively cancelled. Is there anything further I can assist you with specifically today? No, I firmly replied, feeling intensely astonished by the highly positive sensation of uttering that single word. No, that definitively covers every specific detail required. I promptly ended the telephone call and sat down within the sudden, profound quietness of my residential house. Outside, the intense December darkness was steadily descending over the city of Spokane. Christmas illuminations were actively sparkling in various windows where relatives were convening without requiring specific stipulations, without expressing negative judgments, without necessitating the concealment of their authentic personalities. For the initial instance in 5 full years, the upcoming calendar month's established budget would be fully and successfully balanced. Since Maria's unfortunate passing away, this specific moment marked the first time I could realistically afford to repair my external light fixture, buy higher quality food items, and perhaps even take a short recreational vacation. I thoroughly collected the detailed financial statements, the extensive mortgage contractual paperwork, or the existing comprehensive proof of my significantly excessive generosity. I then proceeded to walk directly to my hearth fireplace, struck a single wooden match, and intensely watched 5 continuous years of my active self-sacrifice completely incinerate into final ash residue. The physical warmth emanating from the blazing fire felt highly comforting on my face, warmer than I had consistently experienced in numerous preceding years. My mobile phone immediately alerted me of a received text message. Likely Michael hoping to explicitly convey apologies, or Isabella urgently needing cash resources for something critical like ornamental throw pillows. I deliberately did not check the contents of the message. Instead, I meticulously poured myself a substantial portion of the highly expensive premium whiskey, the specific bottle I had been carefully preserving for a distinct, special occasion that never seemed to fully materialize. Tonight definitely felt sufficiently special and important. I raised my filled glass upward toward the entirely empty room, toward Maria's framed photograph placed prominently on the mantelpiece shelf, toward the identity of the man I used to be and the new identity of the man I was steadily becoming. A very Merry Christmas specifically to me, I clearly announced aloud, and I genuinely and completely meant those specific words. The 5th section was formally entitled Isabella's Deliberate Provocation. The following morning arrived feeling crisp and significantly bright, December daylight streaming powerfully through my kitchen windows as I slowly drank my second prepared cup of coffee. For the first time in numerous preceding years, I was not actively calculating the precise amount of financial resources that would inevitably disappear from my bank account in the course of the upcoming 3 days. The powerful sensation of being truly free tasted significantly better than the expensive Colombian coffee blend I had finally granted myself permission to purchase. My mobile phone rang precisely at 10:47 a.m. Isabella's name prominently illuminated the screen, strongly resembling a crucial warning indication, Dennis. Her voice clearly communicated that recognizable sound of impatience barely being managed. She specifically required me to drive and retrieve her parents directly from the Spokane airport facility. Their scheduled flight arriving from Portland was expected at 2 p.m. I gently placed my coffee mug down onto the counter, observing the rising column of steam. Isabella, did you completely forget our intense conversation from the day before? Look, irrespective of the specifics of that discussion, we must now prioritize practical, real-world matters. My parents desperately require dependable transportation, and you are the single individual with available time capacity during the daylight hours. The audacity displayed was utterly astonishing. Less than 24 full hours after formally declaring me unworthy of participating in Christmas dinner with her relatives, she fully expected me to function effectively as their dedicated personal chauffeur. And your specific reasoning for asking me is because that is the explicit conduct expected of family, Dennis. Genuine family members actively offer mutual assistance. Her voice suddenly became noticeably sharper due to increasing annoyance. Furthermore, let us be entirely honest about the situation here. You are clearly not my rival competitor. You are far too unimportant to successfully challenge me. Therefore, just get into your truck and go collect them immediately. There, it was stated clearly. The ultimate offensive slight presented carefully packaged as a direct command. What specific airline are they traveling on? I inquired, keeping my tone entirely calm. Alaska Air Flight for 7. They will be waiting near luggage carousel 3. And Dennis? They expect the presence of someone fully capable of handling their specific baggage correctly and carefully. Do not, under any circumstances, cause us public embarrassment. I could distinctly hear the repetitive tapping sound of her fingernails against a hard, rigid surface. Likely the expensive granite countertop. The one I had financially subsidized when she decided laminate material was entirely inadequate for her planned dinner parties. Certainly, I quickly responded. I will efficiently handle every specific detail. Good, and please wear something appropriate. Perhaps that specific blue shirt you wore specifically for Michael's college graduation. They pay extremely close attention to such material things. The communication line instantly disconnected. She had not even bothered to offer a single word of appreciation or thanks. I leaned further back in my comfortable chair, staring intently at my mobile phone's dark display screen. 2 o'clock arrival time, flight for 47. Lugage Carousel Triken Feimol, 10:52 Meter. Plenty of time still remained available. I poured myself an extra serving of coffee, adding 1 additional spoonful of granular sugar, and unfolded the previous day's newspaper to the specific crossword puzzle I had not yet managed to complete. 7 across position, delayed gratification, 12 total letters required. The correct solution would eventually become apparent to me. The 6th section was explicitly titled The Airport Trap. At precisely to 15 p.m. I was comfortably settled into my preferred, relaxing armchair, with a freshly brewed serving of Earl Grey tea and the Sunday edition of the Spokane Review newspaper. The previously finished crossword puzzle from the preceding day, where the confirmed answer for delayed gratification was postponement, rested casually on the surface of my coffee table. My mobile phone suddenly vibrated sharply against the wood surface. Isabella's name was visible once again. I allowed the phone to continue ringing continuously. The December solar light slanted powerfully through my living room windows, providing warmth to the distinct area where I had spent countless lonely evenings, mentally calculating the total cost of my sustained generosity. Today, the quiet ambience felt noticeably different. It felt fully earned and deliberate in its purpose. At 2:47 p.m., the mobile phone buzzed once more abruptly. I could partially view the message preview text. "Dad, where are you exactly?" "My parents are." I carefully placed the phone screen face down and resumed actively reading the sports news section. The Seahawks football team had suffered yet another loss. Some specific things consistently remained unchanged. By 3:30 p.m., my phone had violently vibrated a total of 6 different times. I had thoroughly finished reading the newspaper, brewed a second entire container of tea, and commenced actively organizing the miscellaneous utility drawer located in my kitchen. It was truly remarkable how much could be effectively achieved when not frantically rushing to immediately serve individuals who clearly viewed you as their personal, private, uniformed bellhop. The 7th instance of a phone call occurred precisely at 3:45 p.m. Instead of Isabella's identifiable name, I saw the display showing a known number. Likely her parents, utilizing a borrowed communal airport facility phone. I allowed that specific call to ring continuously as well. Outside, my next-door neighbor was actively installing seasonal Christmas lights onto his porch structure. His energetic children ran quickly across the entire yard with the frantic high level of energy that only chilly December afternoons generally seem to strongly inspire. Ordinary, regular families actively engaged in typical, regular domestic activities. No one present was physically trapped anywhere, awaiting the arrival of someone who would definitively never show up. At 4:15 p.m., my mobile phone commenced ringing, virtually without cessation. Isabella calling, then the unidentified number, then Isabella calling yet again. The vibrating sensation became persistent and irritating, similar to an agitated buzzing insect trapped directly against a window pane. I walked directly to my kitchen area and physically disconnected my stationary landline telephone from the wall electrical outlet. Then I proceeded to completely deactivate my personal mobile phone device. Absolute and complete quietness immediately enveloped the space. I prepared myself a satisfying grilled cheese sandwich and gently warmed a container of thick tomato soup. This specific meal was classic comfort food. I had denied myself the pleasure of consuming for several months because every single grocery expenditure dollar had been directed toward meeting financial obligations while simultaneously funding their privileged high standard of living. The cheese ingredient melted to achieve a perfectly golden brown color shade. The warm soup released comforting steam within my favorite coffee mug. Outside, the winter sun was already commencing its definite descent, projecting elongated shadow shapes across the back lawn area. Somewhere situated across the entire city municipality, 3 specific individuals were likely standing outside in an airport parking location, vigorously arguing about high taxi fees and intensely wondering how their presumed dedicated personal servant possessed the extreme boldness to deliberately abandon them. That particular sequence of thought significantly enhanced the flavor of my warm soup. By precisely 5 p.m., I had successfully finished consuming my meal, loaded the various items into the dishwashing apparatus, and was actively deciding which cinematic film production to watch. It had been many calendar years since I experienced an entire evening exclusively to myself without worrying incessantly about urgent financial inquiries or sudden, last-minute demands for favors. I was actively reaching for the television remote control device when someone suddenly began violently striking my front entrance door. It was definitely not a gentle, polite tapping, but rather aggressive, intense hammering. The specific kind of loud banging that violently shook the surrounding door frame and clearly announced undeniable, pure aggression and rage. I walked slowly and deliberately toward the origin of the sound, already completely certain of precisely who I would encounter on the opposite side. The aggressive pounding escalated significantly as I got closer, each subsequent impact noticeably more forceful than the previous one. Through the small viewing hole, I could clearly discern 3 distinct figures closely packed together onto my small porch area, closely resembling a group of predatory wolves encircling their chosen target prey. I opened the door fully to immediately see Cody Jenkins' brightly flushed face smear, inches away from my own. What exactly is fundamentally wrong with your mind? He aggressively yelled, forcefully pushing his way past me directly into my living room without receiving any formal invitation. We patiently waited at that damned airport facility for a period exceeding 3 complete hours. Catherine swiftly followed his path. Her hair, usually flawlessly perfect, was notably disheveled, and her thin lips were compressed tightly into a narrow line indicating intense, deep hatred. This type of behavior is absolutely intolerable for someone who is your advanced age, Dennis. It is truly and utterly barbaric. Isabella entered the room last, her expensive outer coat visibly crumpled, her facial makeup visibly smeared. You actively humiliated us publicly. Do you fully comprehend the severity of what you have actually done? My parents were forcefully obligated to take a $40 taxi ride simply because you decided to abruptly leave my house. My voice suddenly cut cleanly through their aggressive complaints, like a sharply honed blade slicing through smooth silk material. They instantly ceased their speech mid-sentence, visibly stunned by the unexpected firmness and clarity of my vocal tone. "Excuse me," I stated directly. Cody's facial complexion noticeably shifted color from a bright red hue to a deep purple shade. "You are absolutely not entitled to make demands right here, friend. Not immediately following your deliberate actions today. This specific location is my personal residence," I declared quietly, actively maintaining my fixed position near the entrance door. "And I unequivocally require you to depart immediately." Catherine moved noticeably closer, her voice completely saturated, with the usual condescending air she had expertly cultivated over several decades of actively looking down on specific individuals such as myself. Dennis, you clearly demonstrate a complete failure to grasp the sheer gravity of your massive error. My husband possesses highly influential contacts operating throughout this entire city. Significant business connections, expansive social affiliations. You simply cannot treat people exactly like us this way and reasonably anticipate. This specific event served as a necessary lesson for you all. I swiftly interrupted her, actively maintaining unwavering eye contact with her specific position. A definite lesson concerning your extreme arrogance and your consistently poor treatment of individuals. Individuals you actively perceive as inherently beneath your status. Isabella's mouth immediately dropped wide open in evident shock. A lesson, you say? Who precisely do you imagine yourself to be to actively lecture anyone about any specific matter? You are merely a nobody. You are simply a... I am the precise individual who finally stopped actively serving as your designated personal bank and required driving service. I conclusively finished my thought. I purposefully moved my body aside and held the entrance door open even wider. The mandatory instructional period is definitively concluded. You are now free to exit the premises. Cody forcefully pointed one finger directly toward my chest region, but meticulously avoided making any physical contact. You possess absolutely no comprehension of the specific person you are actively antagonizing, old man. I have continuously resided in this exact town for a significantly longer period than you have been actively breathing its air. I am personally acquainted with numerous people, highly influential community figures, specific individuals who possess the substantial power to deliberately make your existing life extremely and severely challenging. Is those specific statements intended to be perceived as a formal threat, Mr. Jenkins? I calmly inquired of him. It is an extremely serious and solemn promise. His voice suddenly dropped to a menacing, low whisper. You truly believe abandoning to elderly individuals at a large airport is an action you can successfully execute without facing subsequent severe repercussions. You are quickly about to discover precisely how deeply mistaken your assumption is. Catherine strongly agreed with her husband, her smile appearing sharply defined enough to physically cut glass. Indeed, deliberate actions always carry inherent consequences, Dennis, and yours are guaranteed to be significantly public. Isabella forcefully pulled her father's arm. Daddy, let us simply depart immediately. This pathetically old man is clearly not worthy of utilizing our valuable time. They ultimately departed, my residence resembling a defeated military contingent. However, Cody deliberately turned back once more at the external threshold. You will bitterly regret this specific action, he emphatically guaranteed me. I firmly closed the door located behind them and successfully engaged the heavy deadbolt lock with a satisfying, conclusive metallic noise. Through the transparent window glass, I actively observed them forcefully crowding into their hired external vehicle, still openly arguing vehemently among themselves as they quickly drove away into the deepening cold December darkness. The interior of the house immediately felt cleaner following their departure, as though their physical presence had consistently left a noticeable, unpleasant stain that was only now beginning to substantially disappear. Nevertheless, their fine immediate surrounding silence. Public repercussions, highly important people, influential connections were mentioned. I subsequently returned directly to my living room space and picked up my waiting tea beverage, which was still notably warm inside its container. For the initial time throughout this entire, highly complicated ordeal, I briefly sensed a feeling that might have been characterized as minor concern, but this feeling was swiftly overshadowed by something considerably more potent and dominant. Intense anticipation for what was coming. 3 calendar days subsequently, I was comfortably enjoying my usual customary morning coffee beverage and systematically reviewing the Spokane Review newspaper, when I abruptly noticed my own personal photograph intently staring back directly at me from the third printed page. The highly prominent headline boldly stated, "Spokane businessman deliberately abandons elderly couple at local airport during significant holiday storm." My hands became entirely motionless while holding the coffee mug. There I was visibly displayed, in stark black and white printed text. An outdated photograph retrieved from my construction company's official website, likely 5 years beyond its actual date. Below the image, a detailed narrative that simultaneously caused my circulatory blood to freeze completely and my internal temper to rapidly ignite with fury. Cody and Catherine Jenkins, formally identified as being present to visit their daughter for the established Christmas period, were allegedly deliberately left abandoned at the Spokane International Airport facility for a prolonged duration exceeding for continuous hours on that specific Sunday, when family member Dennis Flores completely failed to arrive for a prearranged retrieval. The couple, both accurately described as being in their late 50s age bracket, reportedly waited in genuinely freezing temperature conditions as a formal winter storm advisory warning was officially declared for the regional geographic area. Winter storm warning was explicitly mentioned. It had factually been 52 degrees Fahrenheit ambient temperature and entirely sunny weather. We possessed absolutely no ability to comprehend that someone would simply desert us in such a shocking manner, stated Cody Jenkins, identified as a retired banking executive. We contacted him via telephone repeatedly, but Mr. Flores never once responded to his mobile phone. We were forcefully obligated to acquire an expensive taxi transportation service in dangerously hazardous climate conditions. At our specific current stage of advanced life, this particular form of cruel behavior is not just merely thoughtless and inconsiderate. It genuinely represents a true physical danger. The published article then proceeded further with specific quotes regarding my claimed pattern of highly inconsistent behavior and strongly implied questions concerning my mental state of well-being. Cody had strategically presented both himself and Catherine as vulnerable, helpless victims of a truly cruel elderly man who had suddenly and unexpectedly lost complete control without any previous instigating provocation. There was absolutely no mention whatsoever of the formal rejection from the planned Christmas dinner celebration. There was zero context provided regarding Isabella's previous urgent demands or the extensive years of severe financial exploitation they actively engaged in. Juste solem et pablerolles de definionist de who desert poor. Older travelers during a supposed massive snowstorm that only truly existed purely within Cody's creative imagination. I slowly set down my cup of coffee and read the highly damaging report again carefully, then a third complete time. The professional name specifically attached to the critical article was Patricia Morrison, confirmed lifestyle section editor. I did not personally recognize the individual's name immediately, but I instantly recognized the deliberate operational strategic tactic. Cody had successfully invoked influential favors, actively utilizing his extensive banking professional network connections to completely ensure this specific derogatory narrative was published precisely at the location where it would purposefully inflict the maximum potential damage upon my established business reputation. It was undeniably an extremely astute tactical maneuver. For the initial time since this entire extensive debacle had originally commenced, I experienced a slight, reluctant feeling of respect for my current adversaries. They were clearly not simply self-centered trust beneficiaries throwing childish fits of pique. They demonstrated they were both calculated in their approach and highly strategic. They fully grasped the crucial reality that within a smaller city municipality like Spokane, one's public standing and reputation was absolutely everything that mattered. A single, meticulously and strategically published newspaper article possessed the inherent power to completely destroy several decades of devoted hard professional labor. They had officially and formally declared absolute total warfare against me. I carefully folded the newspaper document and placed it deliberately aside, my internal thought process already smoothly transitioning into the meticulous planning mode that had originally enabled me to effectively establish my construction business starting from scratch. This confrontation was absolutely no longer solely about airport pickup, retrieval. This was not merely about a holiday, dinner, invitation, or ongoing mortgage payments. This entire situation was now singularly focused on the dedicated objective of achieving ultimate victory. I activated my personal laptop computer and immediately started entering specific names into various internet search engine tools. Cody Jenkins, Catherine Jenkins, Isabella Flores were the targets. I thoroughly researched their comprehensive profiles on existing social media platforms, their established network of various connections, their clearly identifiable established habits, and their intrinsic, underlying vulnerabilities. Everything they had foolishly made readily publicly accessible over the course of the preceding years. If they genuinely wished to actively participate in a strategic, tactical game, I would certainly demonstrate the undeniable sophisticated skills of a true, seasoned strategist. I specifically checked the hanging wall calendar. The date was December 18th. 7 full days remained until the designated Christmas Day celebration. 7 crucial days to meticulously plan a targeted action they would permanently remember and never successfully forget. I dedicated the subsequent 72 continuous hours existing within a completely different, detached mental operating space, not the recognizable world where I was simply Dennis Flores, the emotionally damaged older man who passively permitted his immediate family to severely take financial advantage of his situation. This new operating reality was the world where I actively functioned as Dennis Flores. The disciplined, organized businessman, the strategic, analytical problem solver. The determined person who had successfully built something meaningful from absolutely scratch and was completely resolute not to permit a group of excessively entitled parasites to effectively demolish what I had dedicated 40 entire years to painstakingly constructing. My personal laptop instantly became the centralized command area for operations. Social media, online profiles occupied my browser tabs, arranged similarly to critical playing cards in a high-stakes competitive gambling game. Cody Jenkins was precisely identified as a formerly retired senior manager from First National Bank, a current actively contributing member of the Spokane Country Club, and the official treasurer for the Inland Northwest Business Leaders Association. He was distinctly a person who had spent his entire professional career in positions requiring significant authority and influence. Consequently, he was undeniably a specific person with a substantial personal reputation at severe risk of being completely lost. Catherine S. personal Instagram social media account meticulously presented a thoroughly fabricated public image of highly sophisticated and refined living. It openly displayed charity fundraising events, carefully organized wine tasting sessions, and numerous vacation photo images taken specifically in Coeur d'Alene, a lean with the accompanying descriptive label blessed life. Every single online post was meticulously arranged and framed to aggressively project significant financial prosperity and high social sophistication. Comments originating from her acquaintances universally praised her highly refined aesthetic preferences and her inspiring life choices. All of that curated lifestyle was financially subsidized by capital originating from various other people, specifically including funds that were originally my own personal resources. Isabella's Facebook chronological activity feed, however, openly revealed the actual, unfiltered factual narrative. Posts made mention of their beautiful home, prominently featuring photographic images of the kitchen space I had directly paid for. Check-ins documented visits to numerous expensive upscale restaurants during the precise same calendar months, when I was actively covering their increasing residential utility expenses. A status update published from the preceding week expressed noticeable enthusiasm for the approaching Christmas dinner with family, openly anticipating the opportunity to successfully show off our hosting capabilities, our home, our attained success. The overwhelming degree of visible narcissism was truly breathtaking in its scope. However, it was Michael's professional LinkedIn profile that specifically provided the concluding missing piece of information I urgently required. His most recent platform activity clearly showed a newly established professional connection. Patricia Morison, formliste de Stylede at the Spokane Review newspaper. The identical Patricia Morrison, who had specifically authored the highly critical, malicious article directed about me. I leaned comfortably back in my professional desk chair, intensely contemplating the conclusive evidence. The information was widely spread across my computer screen. These individuals had committed exactly 3 crucial, undeniable errors. Firstly, they had completely and thoroughly underestimated my inherent capabilities and resolve. Secondly, they had initiated their aggressive attack entirely within the public domain, meaning I maintained the complete right and ability to formally respond publicly. Thirdly, they had meticulously documented their entire, excessively privileged lifestyle online for all to see, thereby inadvertently creating a flawless comprehensive inventory of their profound hypocrisy. I clicked through specifically to Patricia Morrison's online professional profile. She was precisely 43 years of age, held a formal journalism degree successfully obtained from WSU, and had accumulated a total of 15 years of experience working at various local newspapers. She held absolutely no prior professional connection to the established banking or finance industry sectors, which distinctly meant Cody had initiated an unsolicited approach, most likely utilizing someone known from his extensive professional network circle. A swift internet search, taking only 5 minutes of dedicated effort, through local business directories comprehensively confirmed my initial specific suspicion. There were identified exactly 3 mutual professional contacts established between Cody and Patricia's direct editorial superior. The damaging story had absolutely not materialized by mere accident or chance. It had been deliberately and meticulously placed within the publication. Clearly, amateurish efforts demonstrated. I promptly began typing detailed content into a completely fresh document file. This meticulously prepared document was not exclusively meant to be merely a hasty reaction to their recent aggressive media attack. It represented something far superior and more comprehensive. It was a systematic, chronological summary of all financial transactions. 5 consecutive years of unwavering financial support carefully documented with verifiable bank records, original financial receipts, and numerous checks that had been successfully processed and cancelled. The initial large down payment amount for their residence, specifically $47,000, originated completely from my available home equity loan funds. The comprehensive kitchen renovation, which was initiated when Isabella forcefully insisted that granite stone countertops were absolutely essential, totaled $18,000 charged entirely to my personal credit card. Not because that specific date marked the recognized holiday of Christmas Eve, but primarily because it represented the absolutely perfect day for definitive justice to be successfully administered. Based specifically on Isabella's public Facebook event invitations, they were meticulously planning to host a formal Christmas dinner gathering designed for 12 invited guests. This included their close relatives, trusted friends, adjacent neighbors, and specific associates from their exclusive social circle. These guests were precisely the type of influential people who regularly read the Spokane Review publication and consistently established their personal opinions based strictly on what verifiable content they encountered displayed there. The precise type of specific people who absolutely deserve to be provided with the complete, unvarnished truth. I immediately closed my personal laptop computer and proceeded to walk toward my kitchen area, where I had carefully stored my professional, high-quality camera device. I had originally acquired it many years prior specifically for documenting various work sites for my established construction business enterprise. It was now the opportune moment to utilize it purposefully to meticulously document a completely different, crucial category of evidence. The subsequent day was Christmas Eve. Tomorrow, Cody Jenkins and his immediate family members were going to unequivocally understand the precise outcomes that occurred when you formally declared open conflict against someone who genuinely understood how to actively fight effectively. Christmas Eve morning arrived feeling notably grey and intensely cold. The exact kind of Spokane winter period day that compelled residents to fully appreciate the warmth of secure dwellings and the concept of family closeness. It was highly unfortunate that I would receive a welcome at neither specific location. Nevertheless, I had previously finalized other necessary arrangements. I organized my comprehensively compiled evidence systematically, highly similar to a trained legal professional preparing documents for a formal judicial trial. The complete bank statements were grouped neatly according to the specific year. Each and every individual monthly payment transaction was visually emphasized using a distinct yellow marking pen. Receipts were meticulously arranged in strict chronological order, clearly illustrating the consistently repeating pattern of my dedicated financial backing for maintaining their lavish lifestyle. Printed photographs deliberately taken from their online social media accounts openly displayed. Isabella's recently acquired expensive jewelry, their lavish international vacation locations, and the costly holiday decorative items currently adorning the precise residence I had financially supported them in retaining. Every single page of documentation was carefully duplicated exactly 12 times. One complete set was specifically designated for each individual attending the dinner guest list. The derogatory newspaper article was intentionally placed directly on the top surface of each comprehensive stack. My conspicuous red pen annotations clearly visible and legible in the external margins. The stark word lie was boldly written adjacent to Cody's false quotations concerning the supposed hazardous weather conditions. The word false was explicitly written directly beside the unfounded accusation regarding my alleged erratic behavior. Missing context was strongly highlighted where they had deliberately chosen to fail to mention the 5 consecutive years of continuous, significant financial support. I dressed with meticulous care in my best available suit. The specific navy blue one I had previously worn for Maria's formal funeral service, now neatly pressed and fully ready for a distinctly different type of serious departure. Today, I was unequivocally and definitively bidding farewell to the weak identity of the man who had passively and willingly served as a persistent doormat for his close family members. Tonight, I would successfully transform into a person who consistently demanded and received appropriate respect. At exactly 6:30 p.m., I loaded my prepared briefcase containing the comprehensive evidence packets and actively drove toward the neighborhood. Known as Kendall Yards, their personal residence projected a warm, highly welcoming light outwardly. Numerous vehicles occupied the entirety of the driveway and were also parked, continuously lining the adjacent street. Through the transparent front windows, I could clearly distinguish human figures actively moving within the designated dining room area. Isabella was actively fulfilling the self-appointed role of the highly sophisticated hostess inside the dwelling my money had crucially helped them successfully purchase. I carefully parked my vehicle onto the street area situated directly opposite their specific house and checked my wristwatch. The time was 6:45. The precise timing was absolute perfection. It was sufficiently late in the evening that every invited guest would be comfortably seated for the scheduled dinner service. Yet, it remained early enough that they would still be actively consuming the main food course. This specific arrangement effectively ensured that a quick, easy escape would be rendered impossible for any individual presently seated. The main front entrance door was, entirely predictably, left purposely unlocked. Isabella habitually enjoyed openly boasting about the supposedly high level of safety provided by their particular neighborhood. How they allegedly did not need to express concern regarding established security measures, unlike specific people residing in less desirable geographical areas. I allowed myself to silently enter the premises. The warm indoor air immediately impacted my face, along with the distinct sounds of conversation and genuine laughter openly emanating from the packed dining room. And then I clearly overheard Catherine make the remark, "But my dear, that is absolutely not the established way we conduct matters within our specific family," followed by noticeably more laughter. Our specific family, after all the calculated, deliberate actions they had specifically taken to actively exclude me completely from it. I walked purposefully directly into the dining room while carrying my heavy briefcase. 12 distinct faces simultaneously rotated to face me, displaying intense emotional reactions ranging widely from sheer, total surprise to complete, outright horror. Isabella instantly froze rigid, her delicate wine glass suspended, stationary halfway to her lips. Michael's face was visually pale and drained of color. Cody and Catherine appeared exactly as if they had just personally witnessed the sudden appearance of a haunting ghost. "A very good evening to everyone present," I announced calmly, deliberately placing my heavy briefcase onto their marble sideboard fixture. "I sincerely trust you will not object to my unexpected participation in your elaborate Christmas celebration." Isabella quickly found her voice first and spoke. "Dennis, this precise behavior is entirely unacceptable and inappropriate. You are strictly required to leave this residence immediately." In point of actual fact, I stated, actively opening my briefcase and meticulously pulling out the first organized stack of crucial documents. "I truly believe your assembled guests are fully entitled to clearly know the specific individual who genuinely provided the financial means for this entire dinner arrangement, this extensive residence, and this precise high standard of living you have been openly exhibiting. A specific woman whom I did not personally recognize, likely categorized as one of Catherine's charitable acquaintances, leaned perceptibly forward, clearly intrigued. What exactly is he actually talking about, Isabella? He is presently experiencing some kind of severe emotional breakdown episode, Isabella quickly and defensively responded. Michael, please promptly contact someone for immediate assistance. But I was already actively moving my body around the extensive length of the dining table, deliberately placing an organized packet of documentation directly in front of each seated dinner guest. Displayed here are the formal copies of the detailed bank records I stated using a measured conversational vocal tone. 5 full consecutive years of consistent financial backing. $168,000 paid solely in necessary mortgage installments, plus the initial required down payment, subsequent major renovations, expensive furniture purchases, high-end appliances, literally every single thing surrounding your positions. The entirety of the room instantly became profoundly silent. The quiet atmosphere interrupted only by the rustling sound of paper as 12 different individuals began actively and critically examining the clearly presented evidence. I closely observed the undeniable transformation of their facial expressions as they intently processed the large numerical figures, the specific calendar dates, and the absolute undeniable verification of my sustained, long-term generosity and their calculated, underlying deception. This entire situation is, one specific man started to articulate, then suddenly paused, staring fixedly and intently at a specific bank transaction statement. It is absolutely outrageous, definitively concluded the woman seated directly across the table from him. Isabella, what was your rationale for intentionally withholding all of this critical information from us? Isabella's previously flawless composure was noticeably and rapidly deteriorating. She frantically claimed, "It is significantly and fundamentally more complex than it presently appears." Dennis spontaneously volunteered his financial assistance to us initially. We never formally or explicitly requested it. Actually, I immediately interrupted her statement and forcefully pulled out the previously printed newspaper article. Let us actively discuss precisely what you did formally request, and the specific content you intentionally communicated to the public media about my person. The perceived ambient temperature within the immediate room appeared to dramatically decrease by at least 10 noticeable degrees. I carefully placed multiple copies of the contentious newspaper article directly onto the table. Surface intently watching as the assembled dinner guests immediately recognized my personal photo from the highly derogatory story that had been specifically published only 3 days earlier. Now, I stated clearly, my voice projecting audibly throughout the profound silence. Cody's facial complexion had completely lost all natural color. Catherine remained sitting rigidly still in her specific chair, her glass of wine momentarily completely forgotten resting in her hand. Mr. Jenkins, positioned here, exploited his personal professional banking network connections to deliberately and maliciously plant this published newspaper story. I continued speaking, lightly tapping the surface of the article. Observe closely how I am specifically characterized as mentally unstable and physically dangerous, actively abandoning poor, vulnerable elderly individuals in supposed freezing weather conditions. A gray-haired man wearing an obviously expensive sweater looked up intently from examining the reading material. Cody, what precisely is the underlying meaning of this document? The precise actual temperature was factually 52 degrees Fahrenheit and entirely sunny outside, I clearly stated before Cody could formulate any response. And they were definitely not stranded international tourists. They were Isabella's biological parents, actively arriving for the Christmas dinner celebration I had been explicitly and formally prohibited from, attending personally because I was deemed definitively unsuitable for participating in their elevated social company. Catherine finally managed to physically force out a few spoken words. That is absolutely not true. We never explicitly said that specific phrase. You never explicitly articulated what specific phrase, Catherine. I directly challenged her strongly. I quickly took out my personal mobile phone, actively displaying multiple captured screenshots of Isabella's public online social media posts. That I was considered far too low class for your specific parents' presence. That my authentic Mexican cuisine and my working-class style of common conversation would inevitably cause deep embarrassment for you in front of your highly educated associates. The woman I had correctly identified as one of Catherine's charity friends noticeably shifted uncomfortably in her immediate seat. Catherine, surely you certainly did not say that. He is intentionally misrepresenting every specific fact, Cody loudly blustered in a defensive posture. But his vocal pitch conspicuously lacked any measure of genuine, honest conviction. This man clearly suffers from extremely severe mental health-related issues. The cumulative combination of advanced aging stress, profound financial instability are clearly contributing factors. Financial instability, you claim. I almost laughed openly and loudly. Mr. Jenkins, I have been actively financially supporting your daughter and son-in-law to the approximate monetary amount of nearly $3,000 every single month for the duration of the last 5 complete years. The sole existing financial problems present in this room are the ones you are imminently about to personally inherit. I turned my body to address the entire group present at the dining table. These people have systematically extracted $200,000 from my resources while simultaneously calling me overtly derogatory names behind my unsuspecting back. They have successfully manipulated my biological son to completely turn against my person. They actively prohibited me from participating in crucial family gatherings, and when I finally made the definitive choice to defend my own self, they attempted to systematically and completely destroy my reputation via the local public newspaper. Michael finally spoke for the very first time, his voice coming out barely audible to hear. Dad, I was truthfully unaware of the specific newspaper article. Your wife, Isabella, was fully aware, I stated quietly and firmly. And her specific parents were the deliberate orchestrators of the entire plan. They transformed my identity into a public villain simply for definitively declining to continue actively serving as their designated personal ATM and required chauffeur transportation service. The entire palpable social dynamic within the highly charged room was rapidly shifting, closely similar to the movements of continental tectonic plates. I could clearly perceive this dramatic change visibly in the distinct facial expressions of all the assembled guests. The gradual, painful realization that literally every single thing they had been previously informed about tonight allegedly highly generous hosts was entirely constructed upon calculated, deceitful fabrications. This specific behavior is absolutely indefensible, emphatically declared an elderly woman who was wearing pearl jewelry, staring intensely at the provided bank statements. Cody, what was your justification for permitting your daughter to extensively exploit this specific man's significant generosity, and then subsequently publicly attack him viciously when he rightfully stopped consistently providing the funds? Cody's carefully maintained outer composure was visibly shattering completely. He intensely insisted that the elderly woman did not fully grasp the complete complex nature of the situation. I completely understand every single aspect fully, the woman sharply interrupted him. This particular man has been actively, financially supporting your immediate, extended family while you consistently treated him exactly like common, hired contractual help. And when he finally verbally asserted his definitive refusal, you maliciously attempted to ruin his highly valued public standing. Catherine's vocal tone emerged, sounding strained and exceptionally tight. She strongly insisted. He maliciously abandoned us completely at the airport facility. After you initially informed me that my personal presence was explicitly unwanted at the main Christmas dinner because I would be considered highly inappropriate for your specific parents' company, I stated calmly and evenly. After devoting 5 full years of consistently paying their accumulated substantial bills, while you consistently and openly looked down severely upon me because of my ethnic background heritage and my specific educational attainment level. The resulting silence that immediately followed was profoundly and completely deafening. 12 separate people were staring fixedly at Cody and Catherine with expressions that ranged widely from intense, utter disgust to palpable personal embarrassment for having personally associated with them. Isabella made one final, desperate attempt to regain control of the rapidly unfolding verbal narrative. Everyone present, please. This is truthfully simply a family internal issue that has unfortunately spiraled entirely out of our control. No, I stated firmly and unequivocally. This situation ceased being correctly categorized as a simple family issue when you deliberately chose to make it specific public knowledge. When you intentionally used the local newspaper publication to openly attack my inherent personal character. When you personally determined that my established reputation was considered acceptable. Collateral damage solely for the sake of protecting your fragile personal pride. I surveyed the faces present at the dining table, looking at various people I did not personally recognize, but who now knew precisely who I genuinely was. I specifically intended for all of you to fully know the verifiable, undisputed truth before you encounter further information about Dennis Flores published in the paper again, because you are absolutely guaranteed to read more about my actions again. But the next instance will accurately present the real, unfiltered story narrative. I firmly closed my briefcase and precisely adjusted the knot of my necktie. Please actively enjoy the remainder of your expensive dinner. It is definitively the last singular meal for which I will be providing any financial compensation whatsoever. As I proceeded directly toward the entrance door, I could clearly hear the chaotic eruption of sound actively commencing behind my position. Voices were loudly raised in strong accusation, intensely demanding specific answers to crucial pointed questions. The audible sound was clearly that of a meticulously constructed social facade completely collapsing entirely into ruin. It was definitively the most satisfying Christmas-related soundscape I had ever personally experienced. The anticipated legal document formally arrived on a specific Tuesday morning in the calendar month of March. It was carefully delivered via registered, certified mailing service, carrying the undeniable, substantial weight of forthcoming severe legal consequences attached to every single printed word. I personally signed for the specific delivery at the location of my front entrance. I consciously noted how the specific spring atmosphere smelled distinctly of new organic growth and future possible opportunities, distinctly unlike the intense winter desperation that severely characterized those dark preceding December days. The official envelope exterior was explicitly marked with the phrases notice of default and final demand for payment. Inside the documents, 3 sequential months of purposefully overlooked mortgage payments had finally and irrevocably caught up to Michael and Isabella, powerfully similar to a significant, unavoidable wave of inescapable harsh reality. They were now financially $8,400 past the due date in accumulated arrears. They were formally granted only 14 calendar days to efficiently bring the full account current immediately, or face the onset of legal foreclosure proceedings on the specific residence I had financially assisted them in initially acquiring. I deliberately placed the formal letter aside onto a surface and resumed the enjoyment of drinking my coffee. I read the content in a highly detached manner, similar to how one reads external news regarding distant, unconnected meteorological events. Interesting, yet absolutely no longer considered a personal concern or worry of mine. My personal phone had been ringing continuously for several weeks with progressively more frantic and desperate telephone calls. Isabella's phone number had been fully blocked after receiving the initial hysterical voicemail recorded message. Cody and Catherine's established high social standing within the Spokane community had rapidly and completely evaporated. Similar to mourning mist dissolving immediately following their highly humiliating public experience at the Christmas dinner gathering. Even Michael's subsequent numerous calls, which I had consistently been ignoring due to a complex internal mixture of lingering strong anger and persistent curiosity about the total length of time it would take him to overcome his personal sense of pride. The confirmed final answer, apparently, was exactly 97 continuous days. He physically knocked on my front entrance door that specific Thursday evening. He no longer presented himself as the self-assured, confident man who had purposefully excluded me from attending the annual holiday dinner. Instead, he distinctly appeared as though he had aged an entire full decade in the short span of only 3 calendar months. Dark, noticeable circles were visible directly beneath his eyes. His once costly, expensive suit was wrinkled and messy. The palpable scent of sheer desperation tightly clung to him, strongly similar to the strong odor of inexpensive cologne. "Dad," he managed to utter when I opened the door fully. We urgently need to engage in a formal conversation. I stepped slightly aside to formally permit his entry into the house. I consciously noted how he observed the interior of my house as though seeing it clearly for the very first time. He saw the new furniture items I purchased with the specific funds from the first monthly payment that was definitively free of the recurring mortgage burden. He saw the recently applied fresh paint on the walls that had actively not been updated or refreshed for 8 entire years. Because every single available spare dollar of my resources had been directed solely toward funding his established high standard of living. He saw the numerous long-delayed repairs I was finally financially capable of affording now that I was no longer consistently supporting someone else's personalized version of the American cultural dream. "This is a nice place," he commented quietly and softly. It is exactly what transpires when you actively allocate money toward successfully benefiting yourself instead of intentionally giving it to ungrateful people who fail entirely to appreciate the sacrifice. I firmly replied, settling myself into my recently acquired recliner chair. "Would you like some coffee?" He clearly shook his head negatively in response. He perched himself visibly, nervously on the very outer edge of my existing couch, as if he intensely feared becoming excessively comfortable. "Dad, I urgently need you to fully understand precisely how profoundly sorry I am regarding absolutely everything that previously occurred. The Christmas dinner rejection, the highly damaging newspaper article publication, the specific manner in which Isabella, the exact manner in which we both specifically treated you." "Please continue speaking," I calmly prompted him to proceed. I was genuinely and truly unaware of Cody's plan to plant that story. I absolutely swear under oath I didn't possess any prior knowledge when I eventually finally discovered the truth. He rapidly ran both of his hands agitatedly through the texture of his hair. "My God, Dad, the truly terrible things they specifically communicated about you behind your back. The callous manner in which they verbally spoke about our entire family, specifically targeting Mom's memory." My jaw muscles involuntarily tighten, suddenly at the painful, sharp mention of Maria's name. But I deliberately kept my voice completely stable and highly level in tone. "And what precisely did they specifically communicate regarding your mother?" "That she was notably better at accurately knowing her place in society than you currently knew yours. That she inherently understood and respected social boundaries." He could not physically bring himself to establish direct eye contact with me. "I should have actively and aggressively defended you. I should have firmly stood up against them many years ago." "Yes," I simply and plainly replied. "You absolutely should have taken that necessary action." We sat together, completely immersed in total silence, for a significantly prolonged period. The massive, accumulated weight of 5 entire years of compounding mistakes intensely occupied the vacant space established between our positions. Outside, I could distinctly hear the ongoing sound of my adjacent, next-door neighbor actively mowing his front lawn. The mundane, commonplace sounds associated with an ordinary Thursday evening within a typical neighborhood environment. A neighborhood where biological sons did not prevent their respective fathers from attending important holiday dinners. The specific house is currently initiating formal foreclosure proceedings. Michael finally confessed openly. I am fully aware. We are fundamentally unable to manage the monthly installment payments without your financial assistance. He abruptly stopped speaking, apparently realizing the full implication and severity of his last few words. Without my previously consistent financial assistance, I completed the remainder of his statement. Without the specific monetary funds, I was consistently transferring every single calendar month while you passively permitted your wife's entire family to actively treat me exactly like garbage. I completely grasp precisely how complicated this specific situation appears, Michael. I leaned purposefully forward, ensuring he was actively looking directly into my eyes. Do you accurately know the precise total amount of money I successfully transferred to your accounts over the full duration of those 5 years? He slowly nodded his head sadly and miserably. Isabella manually calculated it immediately following Christmas. The regular mortgage installments, the substantial initial down payment, absolutely everything else combined. It totals over $200,000. $237,468, to be precisely accurate. I corrected his total figure. I am fully aware of the precise exact figure, because I finally executed the one crucial action I should have performed many years prior. I manually calculated and added up the entire, complete amount myself. His face completely crumpled and distorted. Dad, I am truly and deeply sorry. I honestly possess absolutely no idea how to adequately fix this monumental mess. You are definitively unable to fix it now, son. That substantial amount of money is permanently and irrevocably gone. But, arguably, more significantly, those entire 5 years are also permanently gone. 5 entire years when I could have actively devoted my energy to successfully building a meaningful, solid relationship specifically with you, instead of merely perpetually financing your wife's excessively extravagant fantasy existence. I fully know that specific fact. I fully understand that completely now, Michael immediately responded. He looked directly up at my face with a subtle glimmer of what might have been categorized as hope. But perhaps we could successfully make a brand new beginning. Maybe there is some available solution to the current problem. Are you genuinely asking me to immediately restart the mortgage installment payments? The fragile glimmer of hope instantly extinguished completely in his eyes. We are definitely going to lose absolutely every single thing we possess, Dad. The house structure, Isabella's rapidly diminishing respect for my person, her parents' crucial, valued approval. I am completely and utterly unsure of what specific action I will take next. You will actively find a viable way to competently figure it out. I stated the fact, completely devoid of any intentional cruelty. The exact same necessary way I successfully managed to figure out how to continue living my life without a son who demonstrated respect for my presence. The same arduous way I was forced to learn to spend the Christmas holiday entirely alone while you celebrated, with people who inherently considered me to be far beneath their established social standing. He then immediately began to softly weep. Quietly, similar to a man who had completely exhausted absolutely all other possible, viable options. I have permanently lost you for good, haven't I actually? I prioritized their feelings and opinions over your own, and now I have officially lost you forever. I observed his emotional state for a long duration of continuous time. This man, my son, whom I had diligently raised and intensely loved and made profound personal sacrifices specifically for, who had willfully permitted his wife's entire family to successfully convince him that his biological father was simply not adequate or appropriate for their high social level of company. Michael, I finally responded, after a long pause, you did not actually lose me. You intentionally and willingly gave me away. There exists a clear and definite distinction between those two concepts. He wiped the visible moisture from his eyes using the external back surface of his hand. Is there any remaining faint possibility, any conceivable, logical way you could grant me the necessary forgiveness? I already successfully forgave you many calendar months ago, I stated truthfully, and I genuinely meant the sincerity of those words. But actively receiving forgiveness does not inherently imply returning completely to the specific way things were previously arranged and structured. It absolutely does not signify pretending that this entire difficult ordeal never actually transpired or occurred, or that I am fully prepared to immediately resume financially funding a specific high standard of living that inherently required me to feel perpetually grateful for the tiny remnants of your scattered attention. Then what specific outcome does it exactly mean for us? I formally stood up from my chair position and walked directly toward my decorative mantelpiece. Maria's framed photograph was conveniently situated next to a newly added printed picture. It visually showed me with Rosa and her entire assembled family during an Easter dinner celebration. That particular meal was the very initial holiday I had successfully spent with individuals who genuinely and sincerely wanted me to be present among them. It means that if you genuinely desire a renewed, solid relationship established with me, you will be strictly required to painstakingly construct it entirely from the foundation base upwards. It means actively demonstrating verifiable respect toward me, instead of continuously demanding that I consistently earn it. It means basing all your forthcoming crucial life choices strictly on what is morally right and just, not simply focusing only on what is currently most convenient for your personal comfort. I specifically turned back to face his position, and it explicitly means fundamentally that the very next instant someone, whether it is your wife, her biological parents, or any other unrelated individual actively attempts to completely exclude me from your future family gatherings, you will clearly remember precisely who actually behaves like genuine, supportive family. He slowly nodded his head down, understanding, perhaps successfully for the very first time, that respect was absolutely not an automatic guarantee to receive. The complex situation with the house, he quietly inquired, is no longer considered my personal problem to solve. I sat back down comfortably in my chair, physically experiencing a notable lightness I hadn't genuinely felt in numerous years. You are now legally a fully grown adult man, Michael. Figure the entire situation out in the typical manner that adult men responsibly do. Secure a stable employment position that successfully generates sufficient income to adequately and efficiently cover all your monthly incurred bills. Sell the current residential property and acquire a dwelling structure you can realistically and truly afford. Cease living significantly beyond your currently established financial means, and immediately stop actively expecting various other people to financially. Subsidize your personal chosen lifestyle choices. He stood up slowly from the couch position. His shoulders appeared notably straighter in posture than when he had originally first arrived. You are absolutely correct regarding every single specific point you raised. I clearly understand now. He walked deliberately toward the exit door, then quickly turned around to face my position. Dad, for whatever specific benefit it might offer, seeing you actively and successfully defend yourself at that planned Christmas dinner gathering, I experienced a mixture of definite pride and deep embarrassment and intense anger. But unquestionably genuine pride was definitely there, too. That is genuinely good news, I stated in response. Perhaps there remains still some tangible, genuine hope available for your future yet. Following his departure from the premises, I poured myself another portion of the high-quality whiskey and stepped out onto the surface of my rear porch. Spring weather conditions were beginning their definitive arrival in the city of Spokane. The various trees were starting to show initial bud formation. The ambient air was noticeably warming with a tangible sense of future promise. In exactly 4 calendar months' time, I would successfully reach the age of 63 years. Maria had been physically gone from my life for 8 entire years already. I recognized that I had wastefully and frivolously squandered 5 of those specific years actively serving as a dedicated doormat for specific individuals who completely failed to adequately appreciate my significant personal sacrifice. I was firmly and resolutely determined not to waste any additional remaining time. My mobile phone chimed with a specific text message notification originating from Rosa. Dinner planned for Sunday. The children are greatly eager to clearly show you their current school assignments. I gently smiled genuinely and immediately typed a quick reply message. Wouldn't miss the chance. True family connection, it became abundantly clear, was something you actively located with supportive individuals who genuinely and warmly welcomed your personal presence. Every other social interaction amounted strictly to excessively costly theatrical performance. And I was officially and permanently done purchasing entrance tickets to unnecessary shows where I was prohibited from actively being present on the stage. The whiskey beverage tasted profoundly like unadulterated freedom, and the foreseeable future appeared exactly as bright and promising as I was personally willing and determined to effectively make it. If this entire narrated story resonated significantly with your personal feelings, please ensure you successfully like this video content formally. Subscribe to the designated channel, the specific channel, and openly share your personal emotional impressions of this complex story within the designated comments area. To continue the experience and listen to the subsequent narrated story, actively click on the displayed box prominently shown on the left side of the screen. We sincerely thank you for your viewership and attention.